You're listening to Making the Cut, the mostly true life story of a retired surgeon from 1C Productions.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Seitz, founder and president of 1C Productions. This episode contains explicit language and adult content. It is intended for mature audiences only.
I was so stressed out, so I stopped drawing. I could barely juggle studying all the basic science reading material and visiting Victoria. I needed to focus on passing the second MB to achieve my goal of crossing the Rubicon of Gower Street that held me back from seeing patients.
During the term leading up to the exam, Jonathan and some of us at our dissecting table whittled away at Fred's anatomy. The legs attached to the pelvis and torso are Fred's only body parts still in need of dissecting. These lay exposed on our glass table during the day and were reverently covered by a cloth at night. Over 18 months, Fred had entrusted us with his body and its secrets, hopefully transferring anatomical knowledge to a younger generation learning to heal the sick. Thankfully, Jonathan diligently and patiently did the major part of the dissection, one body part at a time. This freed me to read and study for my next milestone, the second MB examination. My fear of failing it precluded me from spending sufficient time in the anatomy dissection hall. Indeed, I only attended essential lectures. Instead, I cloistered myself in room 337, bashing the books on every topic and lecture that we had covered. I read and reread the material until I mastered an issue: how anatomy was connected to its embryological development and how it underpinned its physiological function. I thought of my father. I imagined him, like me, surrounded by books and studying for his finals. We could have talked about managing the pressures of exams, managing time and the balance between tests and romance. Relative to the rest of the body, the legs are about 18% or 1 in 5 chances of being a question. No anatomy faculty member was that interested in these structures compared to the importance of the anal canal, emphasized by a don't-miss 1-hour lecture. I knew the written exam would present 5 questions to me, and that I could select 4 to answer. I felt certain that in a written essay exam I could avoid a question concerning the legs. I still feared, though, that I'd get caught out during the orals. So, I devised a scheme. The orals occurred over 2 days, following the written exam. I completed the written and felt confident that I had done sufficiently well. My name appeared on the schedule for the second day of the orals. The day before, I stood outside the basement where the orals were given and did an exit poll. Say, were there any questions regarding the legs?
No.
Any leg-related questions?
Not a one.
Good sign. That night, I briefly read about the knee and ankle joints, the vasculatory and main small muscles of the feet, and the nerve supplies. To focus the oral examiner on topics I knew well, I bandaged my right wrist and put my arm into a sling. Maybe the examiner would ask me what happened. I fell and sustained a green stick fracture, I'd say sheepishly. The comeback I anticipated should be, "Tell me about the wrist joint," or such similar topic. It didn't occur to me that they might just see through my devious plot, or that they might be familiar with it, or that they'd decide to focus on the opposite end of the body instead. I entered the anatomy basement and faced a series of oral questions. What are the names of the cranial nerves to the face, and what muscle does it innervate? And what are the functions of these muscles? Tell me about the development of the heart during embryonic development. What nerve innervates the small muscles of the hand? My fingers began to grow blue and cold as the questions continued on to the abdomen. I'd wrapped my wrist too tightly. I tried to wiggle them a bit, even as the questions kept coming, now concerning the anal canal. Finally, the questions stopped. Not a one had been about the legs. Whew, thank God. As soon as I was out of the basement, I unwound my dressing. The next day, at 3 p.m., we crowded about the notice board. I was pleased to see my name among those who had passed. Like my father and mother before me, I did not celebrate this achievement. In my family, success is expected. The effort, the sweat and tears that were invested to achieve success do not merit acknowledgement. I paused to think about Mother. Growing up with Oma and Opa, where the shortages of World War I impacted everyday life. Did she have the opportunity for an exuberance of joy or any gift-giving, ever? Daddy grew up with scarcity in a village in Upper Egypt, where achievement was the only way out of poverty. My father and Sheikh Amin, among my uncles, would see an enjoyment of achievement as nothing more than boasting, fearing the superstition that no good deed goes unpunished. So, instead of celebrating, I focused on the next phase of my life, seeing and helping patients. The time had come to leave Commonwealth Hall and make my new home across the street. With the exams firmly in my rearview mirror, I left Commonwealth Hall and moved into a third-floor dormer in UCH's hostel, the annex at 95 Gower Street, down the road from the hospital itself. Victoria remained at Cartwright Gardens, embarking on her second year of basic science, preparing herself to be tested by the fire of the second MB. My small but cozy room in the annex was on the top of the first house overlooking the anatomy department, where 2 years earlier I had started my life as a student. Sunshine beamed through my window, warming and brightening my new world. My home. Perfection. All right, perhaps not complete perfection. Still, elation swirled through me. At last, I would roam the halls of a hospital, learning and practicing medicine on actual patients. With my few boxes unpacked and earthly belongings ensconced in the annex, I went back out to the street. A new look, befitting my new station, felt appropriate. I walked into Marks & Spencer and walked out a precious few minutes later with grey flannel trousers, a blazer, drip-dry white shirts with essential bland ties, and shiny black shoes. I left behind an indifferent dress code of polo sweaters and pants, along with the burden of the presidency of the Student Physiology Society. Next, a barber neatly trimmed my hair. I gazed at myself in the mirror. Did I look like a doctor yet? I turned slightly left, then slightly right. Yes, I decided. I had made myself ready for my new profession, both inside and out. I returned to the annex and explored beyond my room. I found a shared toilet on the ground floor. Not ideal, but I could tolerate it. Without a radiator, it would also be the coldest room in winter. I noted a coin-fed telephone box on a mantel in the entrance hall by the front door. Everyone in nearby rooms would hear it ring and overhear conversations. At least my room was far enough away to not hear the ringing. As I entered into the new routine, I learned that a mysterious, unseen housekeeper placed our mail on the mantel by the phone. I received regular letters from Oma, updating me with family events in Hamburg, the recent activities of my sister and nieces, and mother's whereabouts in the world, usually Egypt, with occasional visits to Germany. I saw few of the many lodgers who were my classmates. Each Sunday afternoon, As I studied Barron's mining shares and dreamt of making money on the stock exchange one day, I was tortured by the sound of someone practicing an instrument. It sounded like several tomcats in heat. I traced the noise to a ground floor room at the back of the second house. Oh, hello. I was wondering what that noise was. I'm new here and curious about what instrument you were playing.
I'm playing my bagpipes, of course. Tough luck if it's disturbing you. It's my last term before I get the hell out of here, so fuck off.
Oh no, it's not disturbing me, I smiled. But why don't you play it in Regent's Park? I may not have gotten what I originally came for, but in the few moments of our brief exchange, I saw that he had a large room with bay windows facing the garden at the back of the house. A quiet place without the noise of traffic. I left a note for the housekeeper requesting to move into it when he departed. Sunday was a day of rest, and medical students were not expected to appear on the wards. Although I had plenty of reading to catch up on, I fantasized about Victoria, totally absorbed by thoughts of her and our growing relationship. In my mind's eye, I saw her as Botticelli's Venus. She was so attractive, so intelligent, that I could not believe that she loved me, and that I could make love to her. She had learned the Arabic word and script Bahibek, I love you. She wrote Bahibek 1,000 times in all her letters to me. She would even write it on envelopes and postcards. She wrote it on tiny pieces of paper, which she would leave on the dresser after spending time with me. Only Magdalena in Cairo and Kate in Manchester had uttered these words to me before. But when Victoria said it, I felt worthy. I was somebody. I felt alive. It made me feel lightheaded. I had not accomplished anything in life. I had neither fame nor fortune. There were so many great young men in our classes, like Bowtie, who I admired despite his preposterous antics. He came from her social background, had gone to a select public school, and was regarded as our class leader. Yet it was me who Victoria chose. Me she loved. To keep my mind off her and focus on my studies, I sat on a hard chair at my desk and read out loud, underlining important facts. Apart from peristaltic waves, the stomach possesses muscular tone, controlled by the intrinsic nerve plexuses in the walls of the viscus. The vagus nerves are the motor nerves of the stomach. They emerge from the esophageal plexus and reach the stomach by passing through the esophageal opening in the diaphragm. The left anteriorly, the right posteriorly. I could not retain it. It was as if the love for her left no room in my brain to take in vital information. I panicked. How could I pass future exams if I could not remember what I had just read? I recalled Omar slapping me when I wrote the figure 8 as 2 circles, one above the other. Now I slapped myself. Concentrate! Focus! Still, Victoria's smiling face swam between the words I read. No! On Sundays, Victoria came over in the early afternoon, having done her studies, her laundry, or talked with her mother. Since I barely could hear her ring on the top floor, I finagled another key to the front door. At last, my love! The fears that formed in my younger days when I waited for Mother to return evaporated as I held Victoria. I kissed her cheeks and neck, cradling her head in my hands, stroking her straight, short hair. I wanted to rip her clothes off and make love to her right then and there. Instead, knowing that this was not how nice men behaved, I sat down across from her as we chatted. I listened, patiently, as I heard about Shirley while undressing Victoria in my mind, wondering why we were wasting such precious time. Did she not want me? On sunny days, we walked hand in hand past Oxford Street's closed shops to Hyde Park, where we visited the Speaker's Corner, entertained by would-be politicians and the half-crazed, enjoying a good laugh. Then we sipped a cup of tea at Lion's Corner House before taking the tube back and finally, making love. If the morning brought bluster and grey, we snuggled under the covers and read to each other from the Sunday paper. I grew to hope for grey days. Our proximity, touches, and caresses always led to more fondling, resulting in rapidly undressing, rushing to seek the warmth of the covers once more. I loved the feeling of sliding into her, egged on by her low moans as she laid herself open to welcome me into the place that no one else had found or accessed. Yes, I am good for you, I said to myself. I awoke an hour or more later and watched dusk's light play across a sleeping face. When I touched it, she opened her eyes and smiled. Tired of Indian dinners, we alternated by going to Schmidt's, the German restaurant behind the Gower Street tube station, or occasionally to the pricier Italian one around the corner from Schmidt's. I insisted on paying the bill, wanting to show Victoria my ability to take care of her. Contented, we returned to my room, and with our bellies full, resumed reading the Sunday paper, enjoying each other's company late into the evening. I lapped up her love, her embraces, our closeness. Initially, I walked her to Canterbury Hall, a mere 10 minutes away, after her visits, despite her objections that walking in London at night was safe. After a few times of this, she encouraged me to return to Gower Street when we were only halfway to her destination. Finally, to put to rest the argument of perhaps my controlling her, I saw her off at my front door. A no-win situation for a man with an independent woman.
Passing the second MB exam allowed me to put my father's ghost to rest for a while. Armed with new attire befitting a clinical student, a new home of my own in the dormer, and a girlfriend I adored, my transition from college student to medical profession had been set into motion. I could hardly wait to meet my first patient.
You've been listening to Making the Cut from 1C Productions. Making the Cut was written, produced, and directed by Rebecca Seitz, based on Michael McGead's manuscript, Mastering the Knife. Noah James played Michael McGead. Other roles were brought to life by the voice talent of David Marcus. Audio engineering provided by Zisher LLC. Making the Cut theme music by Kyle J. Baker. Learn more at makingthecutpodcast.com.